Here's what they do. They sit and wait for a feeling, for a spark, for some kind of sign that says, now is the time. But here's the truth that most people don't want to admit. Waiting for a sign is just a clever way to delay responsibility. Because the people who make progress, the people who change their lives, the people who build something real, those people aren't waiting. They're working, and they're doing it on a schedule. There's something about structure that most people overlook. They think it's rigid, they think it's restrictive, but that's not how it works. The right schedule doesn't confine you. It frees you. It takes the weight off your emotions. It removes the decision fatigue. It silences the voice that says, I don't feel like it today. Because when it's on the schedule, it's no longer up for debate. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you've committed to. You don't need another burst of motivation. You don't need the stars to align. You don't need a perfect plan. You need to stop looking for signs and start looking at your calendar. Because the people who get things done, the ones who move the needle, they've learned something powerful. Feelings are unreliable, but a schedule is solid. Discipline doesn't care about your mood. It just gets to work. Now here's something to consider. How many times have you said that you'll start when you feel ready? And how many times did that readiness never show up? Because feelings are fleeting. Motivation comes and goes. But structure stays. The people who build extraordinary lives aren't the ones who feel inspired every day. They're the ones who build a routine and follow it anyway. And over time, that routine creates results so solid, people start calling it talent. This idea that you can schedule your way into transformation is one of the most freeing truths you'll ever embrace, because it means you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wonder, hesitate, or hope. You just have to decide. And once you decide, you put it on the calendar. That's when things begin to change. So it isn't about waiting. It's not about hoping. It's about replacing hesitation with structure, replacing emotion with commitment, replacing reaction with rhythm. Because when you build your life on a schedule, something incredible happens. You start taking action without needing to talk yourself into it. You start making progress whether you feel like it or not. You stop negotiating with your own excuses. And here's the part nobody talks about. When you stay on the schedule long enough, the results show up. Quietly at first. A small win, a slight shift, a new level of consistency. Then it builds. Momentum picks up. Your confidence grows. Your identity begins to shift. And suddenly, you're no longer waiting for something to happen. You're the one making it happen. Today, we're going to talk about how to do exactly that. How to stop chasing signs and start building systems. How to create a schedule that makes progress automatic. How to turn discipline into momentum, and momentum into results. Because your future doesn't need a sign. It needs a schedule. The idea of the right time is one of the most convincing lies you'll ever hear. And the reason it works so well is because it sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. Wait until you're ready. Wait until you're clear. Wait until you're motivated. But here's the problem. It never shows up. Readiness doesn't come before the work. It comes because of the work. And the more you wait for it, the further you fall behind. Because while you're waiting for a sign, someone else is working with a schedule. While you're trying to feel inspired, someone else is sticking to the plan. While you're hesitating, they're executing. And before you know it, the gap widens. Not because they were more talented, not because they had better luck, but because they stopped waiting and started moving. People think they're being smart when they say it's not the right time. They think they're being strategic, but what they're really doing is avoiding the discomfort of beginning. Because beginning without a full plan feels risky. Beginning without motivation feels unfamiliar. But here's what matters. You don't need to feel ready. You need to begin anyway. The best time to start is almost never when it feels easy. Look back at any major progress you've made in your life. Did you feel totally ready for it? Probably not. Maybe you felt unsure. Maybe you weren't confident. Maybe you had doubts. But you moved anyway. You showed up, even with shaky hands. And the clarity came later. The motivation came later. The confidence came later. That's how it works. Action first, then emotion catches up. But when you reverse that order, when you wait to feel like it, you become trapped. Days go by, weeks pass, nothing changes. You talk about change. You think about it. You even journal about it. But talk and thought don't move the needle. Only action does. You don't think your way into progress. You act your way into it. And here's where it gets dangerous. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start. Because now you're not just dealing with the task. You're dealing with the guilt of not starting. And that guilt compounds. It becomes weight. It makes even small actions feel heavy. Not because they're difficult, but because they've been delayed. The right time isn't coming. Conditions won't suddenly become perfect. Life won't pause and hand you a window of convenience. If anything, life will keep throwing things in your path. More distractions, more demands, more noise. Which is why you can't rely on timing. You have to rely on rhythm. You have to rely on structure. You have to rely on the decision you already made and the schedule that holds you to it. And here's the shift. Instead of asking whether this is the right time, start asking what the right action is. Because you can't control timing, but you can always choose the next right step. That step might feel small, but it builds momentum. It breaks the inertia. It sends a message to yourself. You're not waiting anymore. You're building. You're moving. You're showing up. You want change? Don't look at the calendar. Don't ask the universe for a sign. Put it on the schedule. Make it non-negotiable. And show up, especially when you don't feel like it. That's the difference between people who talk about change and people who actually make it. One group waits, the other commits. The moment you stop looking for the right time is the moment you start reclaiming your power. Because now you're no longer depending on perfect conditions. You're depending on your discipline. And that's what builds progress that lasts. Setting a goal feels good. It gives you a target, something to look forward to. But the truth is, goals without structure don't go anywhere. A goal without a system is just a wish. It sounds ambitious. It feels productive. But without a structure behind it, it's powerless. Because goals don't get results. Schedules do. Anyone can say they want to lose weight, write a book, or change their life. That's the easy part. But the people who actually do it, the ones who finish the book, transform their health, turn their life around, they don't just have goals. They have structure. They have systems. They have a plan that lives on paper and a schedule that keeps them moving. Here's why that matters. When you have structure, you remove the emotional resistance from your day. You don't have to wake up and negotiate with yourself. You don't have to ask whether you feel like working out or feel motivated to work on your project. You've already decided. It's already in motion. The schedule makes the decision for you. All you have to do is follow through. And here's the key. Structure beats motivation every time because motivation fades. Discipline doesn't. Motivation is emotional. Structure is mechanical. When you rely on structure, you don't need to feel ready. You just need to follow the plan. And when you do that consistently, you start stacking wins. And those small wins turn into big results. Think of structure like scaffolding. You may not be able to build the entire structure today, but if you've got scaffolding, you can get to work. You've got support. You've got something holding you up while you build. That's what a good schedule does. It supports you when you're tired. It keeps you moving when you don't feel like it. It gives your actions a rhythm, a repeatable flow, a daily rhythm that turns effort into progress. Now, here's something most people miss. They think structure is restrictive. They think putting their life on a schedule will make them feel trapped. But the opposite is true. The right structure creates freedom. Because once your habits are locked into your day, you're no longer spending time thinking about what to do. You're not stuck in hesitation or decision fatigue. You've already decided. And that decision opens up energy, clarity, and momentum. A strong structure does something else too. It protects your priorities. Without a schedule, your day fills up with whatever is loudest, whatever is most urgent, whatever pulls your attention. But when your day is structured, your priorities are protected. Your goals are no longer optional. They're scheduled. They're anchored into your life, which means they actually happen. And this doesn't mean your schedule needs to be complicated. In fact, the best schedules are simple, repeatable, easy to follow. A daily rhythm that works on good days and bad days. The more complicated it is, the less likely it'll last. So, don't aim for complexity. Aim for consistency. A few focused blocks of time, a clear start, a clear end, and daily commitment. That's the kind of structure that builds something real. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your systems. And if your system is weak, no matter how big your goal is, it won't carry you far. But if your system is strong, even an average goal becomes powerful. It becomes achievable because now you've got a plan. You've got a framework. You've got a structure that can take the pressure off your feelings and put the weight on your consistency. So ask yourself, do you have a schedule that supports what you say you want? Or are you still relying on hope and good intentions? Because intentions don't build anything. Structure does. And when you start putting your goals on the calendar, when they become part of your routine, part of your day, part of your system, everything changes. That's when progress begins. That's when results show up. Motivation is loud when it shows up, but it's unreliable. It comes and goes. One day it's there, and the next, it's gone without warning. And if your progress depends on whether you feel motivated or not, then so does your future. That's a dangerous place to live because the truth is, you won't always feel like it. You won't always wake up ready to go. But if you build momentum, you don't need to feel ready. You just keep moving. Momentum is quiet at first. It doesn't show up with fanfare. It starts as a decision, a small one. One disciplined action on a day you didn't feel like showing up. One rep when your body said skip it. 1 hour of focused work when your mind said rest. That's the beginning of momentum. It's subtle. It's not flashy. But once it starts rolling, everything changes. See, motivation waits for you to feel good. Momentum waits for you to act. Motivation is emotional. Up one day, down the next. Momentum is mechanical. Once it gets going, it starts working for you. You don't have to push as hard. You don't have to talk yourself into it every time because you've already moved through the resistance. Now the rhythm does the work. It's like pushing a heavy flywheel. At first, it's tough. You lean into it and it barely moves. You push again and it turns just a little, but you keep showing up. You keep pressing. Eventually, that wheel begins to turn faster and faster and faster, until the very thing that once took all your effort is now working on your behalf. That's the power of momentum. But here's what's important. Momentum only builds through consistency. You can't build momentum with sporadic effort. You can't work hard once in a while and expect the wheel to spin. You have to show up daily, even if the effort feels small, even if the win is just getting the reps in. What matters most is not how intense your action is. It's that you keep moving forward, one step at a time. And the best part, once momentum takes over, the energy shifts. You don't have to drag yourself into motion anymore. You wake up already leaning forward. You start your day already knowing what needs to be done. You've built rhythm, flow, structure, and that rhythm creates results, predictable results, results that don't depend on how you feel. They depend on what you've built. Think of someone who's consistent with their fitness. Do they feel motivated every day? Of course not. But they've built momentum, and that momentum pulls them forward. Same goes for writers, entrepreneurs, parents, students, anyone trying to build something meaningful. They don't rely on inspiration. They rely on rhythm. They rely on their system. They rely on showing up. Motivation might help you start, but momentum is what helps you finish. It's what carries you when the excitement wears off, when the work feels hard, when the results feel far away. Motivation wants to feel something first. Momentum says, let's go anyway. That's the difference between those who dabble and those who build. One starts when they feel like it, the other just starts and keeps going. If you ever find yourself stuck, don't wait for a spark. Create movement, any movement. Get a small win. Start with something easy. Momentum doesn't care how small the motion is, only that it's happening. One win leads to another. One action leads to the next. And pretty soon you've built enough speed to power right through the resistance. You want progress? Don't chase motivation. Build momentum. Show up when it's boring. Stick to the plan when you're tired. Keep moving when it's inconvenient. Because the more you do that, the more you shift your identity from someone who needs motivation to someone who moves regardless. And that shift, that's where breakthroughs live. It's easy to stay on schedule when everything goes according to plan. When you're well rested, when no one's asking for your time, when the day is smooth, your calendar is clear, and everything feels manageable. But that's not real life. Real life interrupts. Real life throws curveballs. And that's when most people fall off. Not because they didn't care, not because they weren't serious, but because they didn't know how to protect the routine when life pushed back. If you want your schedule to survive, you have to build it to withstand pressure. You have to build it like armor, something strong enough to hold under stress, something flexible enough to bend without breaking. Because there will be days when your time gets hijacked, when your energy is gone, when your motivation is nowhere to be found. And on those days, the only thing that keeps you moving is the structure you've already built. It's not about never being interrupted. It's about having a plan for what to do when it happens. What's your minimum? What's your fallback? What's the version of your habit you can still do even on your worst day? That's how you protect the routine, not by being perfect, but by being prepared. Maybe you normally work out for 45 minutes, but today was chaos. Meetings ran long, the car broke down, you barely had time to eat. That's not a reason to skip the habit. That's a reason to adjust it. 10 minutes of movement. Something is always better than nothing. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. The schedule needs to flex, not vanish. You got to build what I call default momentum. That means you always have a version of the habit that's doable, no matter what. The full version when the day allows. The stripped down version when it doesn't. But you never let the chain break. You protect the streak. Because even a 5-minute win keeps the identity alive. You're still someone who shows up. And here's where most people go wrong. They build routines that only work under ideal conditions. That's not discipline. That's convenience. And convenience doesn't last. Real structure can handle real life. So build habits that can survive being tired, survive being stressed, survive the unexpected. Because the people who win aren't the ones with the perfect plan. They're the ones with the persistent rhythm. Think about how you protect anything that matters. Your money, your relationships, your health. You don't just hope it stays intact. You take measures. You lock things in. You create safeguards. The same applies to your habits. Block time on your calendar. Turn off distractions. Set up cues and reminders. Let the people around you know what matters to you. Guard your time like it's non-negotiable, because it is. And when the day gets pulled in 100 directions, return to one simple question. What's the smallest version of this that I can still do today? That's how you stay consistent. That's how you stay in motion. That's how you keep the identity strong, even when the circumstances aren't. You also need rules. Rules that remove the need for debate. Rules like, I don't skip 2 days in a row. Rules like, I always write before checking my phone. These aren't rigid. They're reliable. They take the emotion out of it. They turn your discipline into policy. And when life gets loud, the rules stay clear. That's how you stay grounded. Life will push back. Count on it. But you don't need ideal conditions to stay consistent. You just need a structure that can flex, a mindset that doesn't panic, and a system that protects your progress. Because discipline, and that only works when life is easy, isn't discipline. It's luck. The real kind, the kind that builds something extraordinary, shows up even when life doesn't cooperate. Repetition does more than build results. It builds identity. Every time you follow through, every time you show up, every time you stick to the schedule, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And the more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Until one day, it's no longer something you're trying to do. It's simply who you are. At first, the schedule feels external. It's something you're using to hold yourself accountable. But over time, something shifts. You don't just follow the schedule. You become someone who doesn't need convincing. You become the type of person who follows through. And once your identity changes, discipline becomes natural. It becomes automatic. That's the real power of repetition. It's not just about building habits, it's about becoming. Every rep at the gym doesn't just make you stronger physically, it reinforces the identity of someone who trains. Every time you write, you're not just finishing a page, you're becoming a writer. Every time you honor your schedule, you're not just checking a box. You're becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. This is where confidence comes from. Not from hype, not from affirmations, from proof. Proof that you can trust yourself. Proof that when you say you'll do something, you do it. Every time you follow through, you add another brick to your foundation of self-respect. And once that foundation is solid, nothing shakes you. Because now, you're not guessing. You're grounded. Think of someone who never used to follow through. They'd start and stop, set goals and abandon them, talk big, act small. Over time, they began to feel like a fraud, not to others, but to themselves. That's what inconsistency does. It erodes your belief in yourself. But the opposite is also true. Consistency rebuilds that belief, slowly, steadily through repetition. And it doesn't take perfection to shift identity. You'll miss a day. You'll fall off for a moment. That's not the issue. The issue is what you do next. Do you return quickly? Do you keep the promises going? That's what matters. That's what determines whether this is just something you're trying or someone you're becoming. Somebody has probably told you before to fake it till you make it. But there's something better. Repeat it till you believe it. Repeat the action until it feels normal. Repeat the discipline until it feels automatic. Repeat the identity until it feels natural. Because repetition is what turns intention into instinct. Eventually, the person who used to believe they weren't disciplined becomes someone who never misses. The person who used to doubt themselves becomes someone others count on. The transformation is quiet. It doesn't happen with a big moment or a dramatic change. It happens one ordinary day at a time, one scheduled task at a time, one act of discipline repeated over and over again. And then one day, someone asks how you're so consistent or how you changed your life. And the answer isn't a secret. It's not a breakthrough. It's just structure, repetition, identity. The schedule shaped the action, and the action shaped the person. That's how it works. This is why protecting the schedule is so important. It's not just about getting things done. It's about becoming someone who gets things done. That's the identity that will carry you forward, long after the goal's reached, long after the excitement fades, because identity is what stays when everything else gets hard. You don't need a breakthrough. You don't need another audio tape, another seminar, or another wave of motivation. You've heard enough. You've thought enough. You've waited long enough. What you need now is a schedule, a plan, a structure that doesn't care how you feel, only that you show up. Because when it's on the schedule, it's real. It's not a wish. It's not a someday. It's not something you'll get around to when life slows down. It's now. It's part of the day, just like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. No drama, no debate, just action. This is where real change begins, not with a sign from the universe, but with a line on the calendar. Not with waiting for the right mood, but with honoring the commitment whether you're in the mood or not. That's where the shift happens. That's where power builds. And once you start living that way, structured, disciplined, consistent, everything changes. You stop hoping and start producing. You stop chasing clarity and start building it. You stop searching for the perfect moment and start creating momentum right where you are. Your goals don't need more emotion. They need more repetition. Your potential doesn't need more hype. It needs more structure. And your future doesn't need more signs. It needs you to show up on time, on purpose, and on schedule. So make the decision. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Build the structure. Set the schedule. Honor it like your future depends on it, because it does. You're not going to change your life in one day, but you can change your direction. You can take control of the one thing you actually have control over, your routine. And once your routine changes, your results will follow.